The whaling church was built in 1843 by the whaling captains and ship owners of Edgartown. These gentlemen who built this church had the most resources of any industry, any group of people in the country. They could have done anything they wanted. They had the funds to basically build something that looked however they wanted it to look. And this is what they wanted. The church was certainly intended to be very impressive. They wanted the church modeled after the Parthenon in Greece, the iconic temple to the gods, with this Gothic tower on top, a bell that you could hear pretty much through the entire village. And it was also a tremendous achievement in its day in engineering. If you look at the interior of the church, it's a clear span. There are no columns supporting the roof, the ceiling, anywhere inside, all intended to be extremely impressive. The whaling industry collapsed by the Civil War, certainly by the 1870s. Whaling was done. It was replaced by fossil fuels. So by the early 1980s, the congregation had gotten quite a lot smaller, somewhat more elderly, and not able to financially take on the burden of the maintenance of such a large structure. When the Trust acquired the building in 1980, we did a lot of rehabilitation work for it, and as part of that there was a lot of historical research. And as part of that research, the Trust found an original photograph, when I say original, probably about 1870, of the mural. The whaling captains hired an architect, Frederick Bayleys, and Frederick Bayleys had worked with muralist Carl Wendt on churches and meeting houses. The two worked hand in hand. So what we found was that the architecture and the mural were planned at the same time. The mural was not retrofitted to the church. The mural was conceived of as part of the original design, and it was lost in time. The paint that was used originally in 1843 was all organic material. It was fish oil, milk, natural pigments, and over time it faded. So eventually it was painted over, probably before the turn of the 20th century, and lost for all those years except for that one photograph. So the thinking was that part of the restoration process of bringing this church back to its original appearance would be to restore the interior and the murals.
The first step in recreating the mural was really spending, I can't tell you how many hours just staring at the photograph and working directly with this fuzzy image that we'd found and analyzing through almost the kind of like white noise of the photograph what Carl Wendt had intended upon conveying. And we had to use some imagination in a lot of places because there was some photographic burnout, but piecing it together and kind of doing this art scene investigation was the first phase.
In executing this mural, there was a significant amount of research that was done. There were visits to each of the communities, and we found 5 churches that still have architectural murals. To view the murals, to view original portions of them if they still exist, to view restoration attempts, to take a look at the technique that the artists used, the number of stripes that are required in various gradations of gray and white to achieve this trompe-l'oeil 3D effect.
Trompe-l'oeil is a kind of painting which in French means fool the eye, and it's specifically employed utilizing architectural elements so that it expands and embellishes a plain wall. It can make it look much more lavish and interesting. It's especially successful with architecture. I've been told that his technique of painting looks like a lot of German trompe-l'oeil, which utilizes lines next to each other versus blending. He uses these subtle graduations of stripe upon stripe upon stripe of graduated colors, which allows the eye to blend the colors versus actually blending them. I really do believe that the way that we laid this out on the wall was the way that Carl Wendt did in the 1840s. We used the same techniques, chalks, snaps, strings, gridding, And it's always very interesting when you walk a mile in another artist's moccasins, and aligning myself with how Wendt might have been thinking as he created these murals it's fun.
Every now and again, in the business of preservation, you do a project that actually turns out better than you expected, and this is one of those. The mural is not necessarily overtly religious. In other words, there's no paintings of saints or historical religious figures. However, an analysis of the design reveals a lot of symbolism. The mural depicts an arch. There's a portal, and the viewer is invited visually to pass through this portal. Beyond the portal is a light-filled room. You don't see the full extent of the light-filled room until you pass through the portal and get there. And then at the end of the light-filled room is shadow and mystery. So obviously there's an allegory here toward passing through the life that we're in now into the afterlife and understanding the mystery that lies beyond. And this is typical, we find, in these architectural murals in contemporary churches from the mid-1800s. Light is always an element that is celebrated in the design. Beyond that, there's other symbolism in the painting as well. The pendulum that is at the center of the arch is acanthus leaves, and in Greek symbolism, the acanthus plant is a symbolism of light and rebirth. It's associated with the god of Apollo. There are acanthus leaves that are used in Corinthian columns. So in the day, these types of analogies and symbolisms were extremely important. People understood them, and it was central to the message of this design. The public reaction to it has been overwhelmingly positive. People see it, they understand it, they feel that it just works with the space, and indeed, there are so many architectural elements in the church that were built to set up the mural, they're part and parcel of the mural itself, that it fits. And it fits because it was designed to be here from the very beginning.